Hi, and welcome to the Dingers Podcast, episode 28. This is Mitch. I'm here with my boys, Kevin and Jeff. How are you guys tonight?
Hey, how we doing, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Dingers.
Doing well. Surviving. Ready for baseball.
Yep. Great seeing spring training start. But remember, you can find our podcast at shycitysports.com. You can go there, check out all the things they have, message boards. You can keep track of all your favorite Chicago sports teams, whether that's the Bulls, the Blackhawks, the other team from the South Side, the Cubbies. Did I miss one?
Bears.
That's it. The Bears. Yeah, the Bears.
Yeah, Jeff loves the Bears.
Jeff loves the Bears. But yeah, go to Shy City Sports. Follow them on Twitter at Shy City Sports 23, I think is their handle. But yeah, you'll be able to still download our podcast at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, all the places where you get the podcasts. So yeah, but we're into another episode. This is episode 28. Let's talk, since we're talking about spring training, let's talk spring training hats. What are you drinking there, Jeffrey?
Got some Yingling. Nice.
Yingling. Did you drive down south to get that, or where did it?
No, a mutual friend of all three of ours came back to visit. She lives in Tennessee, and she brought me a
smuggled it
12-pack of beer so I could sneak her into the gyms on Saturday and get a.
I mean, no free ads, but Yingling, we're open, and I'm drinking a Toppling Goliath. They're from Iowa, no free ads, but
gotta love Toppling Goliath.
Hit us up, Toppling Goliath, if you're hearing this, and we would definitely be open to a relationship.
Could fill these walls with your ads.
Yep. But since we talked a little bit of spring training,
zoom out.
Let's talk spring training hats. I'm a big hat guy. I buy a lot of baseball hats. I have a lot of Cubs hats. In college, I think I owned almost every single major league hat, except for like the Cardinals, the White Sox, the Brewers. But I think I owned almost all the other ones since I've lost a lot of them.
Did you buy a Pirates hat?
I did own a Pirates hat at one time. I did. I thought the gray, back in the day, they had the gray hats. I thought those looked kind of cool with the black bill.
The only other hats I've ever owned in my life that were not of my favorite sports teams was when I was a kid and I'd have to go to Iowa City for checkups. My dad would always take me to the store and they had like the old school throwback hats, baseball hats. So I had a Brooklyn Dodgers hat and an old school Detroit Tigers hat. This is for I knew better, but yeah, those are the only two hats I've ever owned of a different sports teams than my favorite ones.
I just collected all the major league hats, but usually I always am interested in looking at like the spring training hats. They're usually not very good, and they kind of look dorky. They don't look like the traditional regular season hat. They like make them so they're like breathable. But let's just take a look at some of these hats. And the first one we were going to talk about is the Diamondbacks hat. It's black. It looks kind of cool. And I don't know what they're trying to do this year. They like take the logo and then they try to take their alternate logo and place it behind it or in it. And it just looks bad.
That's a terrible jailhouse tattoo right there, folks.
It does look like a jailhouse tattoo. The other ones that are pretty decent, I would say the Toronto Blue Jays, if you just go to MLB shops and look at some of these, the Toronto Blue Jays, I would say, would be a winner. It isn't too bad. It has the maple leaf with the Blue Jay in the background, kind of like peeking out through it. Looks pretty good. The Tigers, I would say, would be a winner. Has the Detroit D with basically tiger stripes on top of it. That looks kind of cool. Right?
It also looks like a
it's not
for
bad.
The Bengals.
It could be a Bengal.
There is a little confusion there, but if you like both teams, I mean, it's a win-win hat.
Yeah, I can see where you can make the B a D. Easily done.
I mean, I did that on my report card quite often as a child.
I bet you did. And then we have the Cubbies. Not a fan of this hat. I'm not going to be purchasing this Cubs hat. It's too busy. I can't understand. They have the C, the bear, and then the C.
Looks like it says UBS.
It does look like it
the
says
C looks like they use that toothpaste that's 3 colors. What's that?
Oh, yeah.
It does. What is that? Is it? It's not Crest.
No, it's not Crest.
Trident?
Maybe. Somebody will figure it out for us.
Yeah. Hit us up. Tell us what toothpaste the Cubs logo looks like. Here's where it goes downhill a little bit. We're going to start out with the Anaheim Angels. If you're looking at this hat, it looks like you're looking into a mirror of mirrors, where it like, I don't know how to explain it, like zooms
They
way
stole
in.
that from Spaceballs.
Like it's an A upon an A upon an A, a smaller A, and it like zooms way in. Oh man, it's bad.
You lose yourself in that one.
Yeah,
Colgate. Eric says Colgate.
Colgate.
Yep. Thank you, Eric.
Then they've got the Cleveland, which has the Cleveland C. They can't put Indians on it. Remember that. So they just have the C, but then they have Cleveland running up and down on it. It just looks bad.
So are they the Cleveland baseball team now, or?
I don't know quite what they've decided. Research team. We'll get a research team on this and figure out what they're actually called. This hat is just ugly in general. It's just boring and hideous. It's the Cardinals hat. It looks horrible.
Boring.
That's
and then you have
material.
You do have to appreciate this one, the Padres.
That's old school.
They just took a 0. Like Kevin and I are teachers, and they just took a 0 on the assignment. They're like, you know what? We're not going to change a thing. We're just going to go with the S and the D. Here it is, and they turned.
They're the senior who turns in that paper they wrote freshman year again.
Yep, definitely.
Just change
and then
the date and the font.
Yep, date and font. And this is the worst one out of all of them. I don't know what. The Orioles are a bad baseball team, and now they have to subject their players to wearing this ugly hat. Look at it. It's horrible. It's like the bird, but then it has like this baseball player behind it. It just looks horrible. Absolutely horrible. It looks like a puzzle piece.
Puzzle piece. Looks like there's something, naughty going on there too. Like,
We'll guarantee you that's not the missing piece of the puzzle to be a winning ball club.
Yep, that's definitely not the winner of what we need, or what the Baltimore needs to win some games. But yeah, I had to bring it up because I do not like whoever was the designer of these hats. They might need a new job, or might need to find some other sport to ruin their preseason hats. So I did want to reach out to you guys, the fans of and listeners of our podcast. There's been something that's been going on between me and another host of our podcast that we need to address. So if you listened at all last season, you know that Kevin and I are both teachers. He is a science teacher. I am a special ed teacher at the same school, and I teach PE as well. We like to prank each other back and forth. And last year it was innocent little pranks. I would leave, and I leave my computer on and not shut it all the way down. And Kevin would come in and change my background to a Yadier Molina background or a Christian Yelich, and I would get a little angry and dumb little pranks.
Speaking of, how was your backpack today?
Yeah, we'll get to that. So I one time went into his room and he had a picture of his family, and I changed it into a picture of my family.
That was good.
So we've done some things. Well, last week I teach special ed in the morning and then PE in the afternoon, and so I'll change clothes and change shoes into my CrossFit shoes and go to PE, and come back from PE, and my shoelaces are tied together in like 50 knots all around my desk. My desk is involved in it. Other things are like tied into it. It got me a little heated, but I respect game. And so I let it go.
No, he didn't, folks. He walked in and threw his shoes on the floor of my classroom.
Like
and
I
then
said,
and then he said game, respect game, and walked out. But it was pretty funny.
Well, today I get done with CrossFit, come back to my classroom. It gets to be towards the end of the day, and I start packing up like you do. I put my stuff in my bag, and my bag is black. And I start throwing my shoes, my shirt in the bag, get all packed up, and go to lift my bag, and that thing didn't budge at all. Kevin had smuggled a kettlebell into the bottom, a 35-pound kettlebell into the bottom of my bag. And all I had to do, like, you just had to laugh. So I'm asking you, our listeners, hit me up, DM me. We need to take Kevin down. I mean, I like a good prank. I've done some pretty good pranks. We could get into it, but we don't have that long for a podcast.
You should Gorilla Glue all his pins into his pocket protector.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
It can't actually ruin anything.
Yeah, I can't. We do have some lines.
We have some baseline rules.
Yes.
Oh, you got to take it to the next level.
But I want to reach out to you guys because, I mean, throw it out to the Twitterverse and the internets, and there has to be some good ideas. So hit me up, Dinger Cubs at Twitter, Dinger Cubs on Instagram. Find our Facebook group, search us up, become a groupie of at Dinger Cubs fan Facebook group. Join, hit me up, and give me some ideas of how we can take Kevin down. So, yeah, I felt like that needed to be done, and we needed to get this taken care of. But last week we covered the pitching staff, and I felt like it went like this. If Jake Arrieta pitches like he did in 2015
or 16,
if Kyle Hendricks pitches like he did in 2016 and last year, if Trevor Williams pitches like he did in 2018, if Kyle Davies pitched like he did every single time he pitched against the Cubs when he played for the Brewers, and Alec Mills pitched like he did that day in Milwaukee, and our bullpen doesn't suck, we're going to win the World Series.
Cubs in 4.
Cubs in 4.
So it looks decent.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. But So let's today break down our position players. And so let's start off with our catcher, Wilson Contreras. So tell us a little bit about Wilson Contreras there, Jeffrey.
Kevin, Kevin take Willie.
Kevin's going to take Willie? All right.
Yeah. So he's our catcher. Also owner of the best bat flip of last season, perhaps ever. I mean, bat flip to the moon. That shot of that bat flipping in the air and the ball at the same angle. It's fantastic. Last year he batted 243. He was on base 356. Unfortunately, pretty much every stat was down a little bit last year compared to the year before. But considering, as we're going to talk pretty much through all of the hitters, everybody was a little bit down. They got figured out a bit by opposing pitchers. However, Contreras is incredibly streaky. And I think he's had his seasons where he goes on a tear and just wrecks opposing pitching. And his stats just climb through the roof. And then he kind of holds on. And how many all-star seasons has he had where he's so good in the first half, and even though he goes down a little bit in the second half, he's still above average. Fantastic hitter.
And in a 60-game season, it's really hard when you're a streaky hitter. Like 60 games go by like that, and like if you don't hit the streak just right with Contreras, like I would say that this year, hopefully we find more consistency.
Oh, yep. Yeah, and that's where I think like stats look down last year, but absolutely what Mitch said. I think he's going to bounce back. I think he's going to have another all-star season. That's my projection right now. What about you, Jeff?
Well, I'm a big fan of Willie. I mean, ever since I watched him at his first home run on Father's Day, June 19th, 2016. Love that kid. I remember he was the hottest hitter in baseball. Was that 20s when he was legging out a single and pulled his hamstring and then missed like 5 weeks? God, that was terrible.
Right.
He was on fire.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to talk about the cornerstone of our team, the man at first, Anthony Rizzo. We need to put a Captain C on that kid's jersey. We need to give him an extension. I mean, even though he wasn't productive last year, which to me, 2020, that baseball season, it's a wash. I mean, 60 games, that's not even a third of the season. It's just an appetizer. So I look for Rizzo to bounce back this year. Let's see. I mean, he slashed 222, 342, 414. I'd expect him to bounce back. I do. I mean, I think the previous regime really believed in him. They drafted him when they were in Boston together. Jed traded for him when he was the GM of the Padres, and when Theo and Jed got back together in Chicago, their first trade was to bring in Anthony Rizzo. So they believe in him, so they ought to give him an extension, make him the highest paid first baseman, even though we're Wonder Bread and bologna poor right now and have no money.
I know Rizzo today even talked like he lost all that weight last year and the year before to get in shape because he wanted to take things a little bit more seriously. And he said this year he's added some of that weight back on because his power numbers had dipped so much.
Mm-hmm.
And his hard hit contact rate, if you look at over the years, his percentage has gone down every single year since 2017. And so I think that weight loss has kind of dropped some power numbers. And so the boy I know has gotten in the weight room. I know I've seen a lot of the Chicago Cubs players posting more weight room stuff, more of them actually lifting some weights. And so it's good to see. So hopefully we see those power numbers and just those hard hit ball numbers go up with Rizzo.
I mean, so he spent the off season working out and putting on healthy weight. We're not getting a John Kruk, are we?
No.
I mean,
he still looks good.
I mean, even though John Kruk had some wheels, I mean, but I never did. We didn't get to see him sucking down the oxygen tank in the dugout after he legged out a triple. I mean, we didn't. But no, I mean, it's just weird how players they'll get themselves into better shape and lose extra weight, and you see a dip like Kyle Schwarber lost a ton of weight. Try to become more athletic and agile so he could become a better defender, but it kind of hurt him at the plate.
Yeah.
So, no, but I totally agree with giving Anthony Rizzo an extension, wrapping him up for quite some time. And, I mean, he is the leader of the team. I mean, I think it's taken him a while to embrace that role. It was weird to see David Ross come in as a backup catcher and be the clubhouse leader as quickly as he did. And I think some people don't know how to do that. But I think Rizzo is emerging as the leader of the team. So.
Yeah, I think he needs to yell at some opposing dugouts. Every time he does that, he turns around and just backs up his talk. And
especially when it's the Reds or Cardinals.
Reds or Cardinals, please.
Yeah.
Feel free, yell at them, tell them they're boring, and then go hit a couple dingers.
All right, let's move on to second base. And second base is where we have, I think that's where most Cubs fans would like them to address in the offseason. They would love to pull in somebody. Last year we got Kipnis to kind of fill that role that I think this year is going to be handed to Nico. And I would say it's going to be between Nico and Bodie. I think they like Bodie a little bit more to kind of float around the field and fill in at third base, fill in at second, maybe possibly play some outfield. I don't know. But I think they're going to give the keys to second base to Nico, and they're going to just run with him. So the thing with Nico is what people didn't expect was for Nico Horner to show up to spring training with a flow. I don't know if you've seen pictures, but he has long hair flowing out in those golden blonde locks. He's going to harness the power of the golden blonde locks.
He needs 2 chains.
He does.
It needs 2 chains.
he'd be legit then. But yeah, so he did show up with long hair. He looks pretty sweet, and he looks pretty jacked. He's been definitely hitting the weights. He's looking good. But I will say Nico has proven his worth. He got called up from sitting on his couch eating a bag of chips watching the Cubs games to getting thrown into a pennant race trying to win the division when Javi was hurt and nobody trusted Addison Russell with a glove. Or a bat.
On the bases.
With everything. And so he got thrown in there, and it's like, hey, you're going to play shortstop and try to get us into the playoffs. Did well, I would say. Did pretty decent. Had a high OPS. Did great. Last year, he started out the season doing well. Batted pretty low in the lineup. Got protected, but you kind of saw those numbers dip a lot. His hard hit ball rate went way down. And so that's where it's like, hopefully we see a little bit of maturity. You see some growth. You see some steps forward with Nico. And I do trust that's going to happen. And he is one where it's like, we do have veteran guys at every position on the field. We're okay if Nico Horner maybe struggles a little bit like last year. We still made the playoffs, and he struggled, but he can learn and grow. The one thing I will say is if you're going to pick Nico or Bodie on a pure offensive standpoint, which the Cubs definitely need offense, which that's what they struggled with last year, Bodie is the better bet. Bodie had a 52% hard hit ball rate, which is like top 20 in the league, but he batted only like 222. I think it was really low. I think the big thing with Bodie last year is he just had really bad luck. He either hit the ball hard, he hit it right at people. But I will say, Bodie was the most clutch batter on the team last year. He had how many walk-off hits or big eighth inning hits that drove in a go-ahead run and then would close it down in the ninth. You could always trust Bodie to get that hit, to punch it through the hole, and to hit the ball hard. So I see both of them getting a lot of playing time. But I think Nico is going to be the guy, and right now I think I'm okay with that. I mean, unless Daniel Descalso is still out there and he will take like a really, really low paycheck, I think Jeff would be open to signing Daniel Descalso.
No way.
Who says no? Who says no?
I say no. Can you imagine what he looks like? He's going to have like a pot belly. No way.
And that is us meeting a quota of talking trash about
Check it off your bingo boards, folks.
Once an episode.
I bet when he looks down, I can't even see what color shoes he's wearing. The only thing you can see is like Dorito crumbs hanging on that shelf.
Well, let's move on and talk about Chris Bryant. Man, Chris Bryant, there is still a C on his hat. There's still a C on his chest. He is still a Cub. So therefore, I am going to support him. And I think that's what we need to, as Cubs fans, approach it. We need to stop wanting a trade, stop
talking about
pushing a trade, stop talking about a trade.
Do you remember when we interviewed Randy Wayhome for last year and he was talking about just the media in general says stuff to say stuff?
Right.
Yep.
It's annoying. Like when they were trying to figure out who was going to be the next manager when, Joe Madden got the job. I wish all these Chicago Cubs beat writers would just get off Chris Bryant's back.
Right.
Let him play.
Yeah. The thing with this is, and he went on, if you listen to Redline Radio, he talked a little bit about this, about the rumors and the critics and how that affected him. Picture being Chris Bryant. You were the college baseball player of the year.
That's
you were rookie of the year, Golden Spikes Award winner. You were rookie of the year. You were the MVP. You were a World Series champion. And then you get hit by a couple injuries. A shoulder injury where it changes your swing. You start struggling a little bit, and then it gets close to your contract being up, and you're hearing all this negativity, it's got to affect you a little bit for the first time in your life, probably hearing negative talk and hearing where a team might not want you. I think he's been probably the desire of every team that he's ever been a part of, that they've wanted him to play for them.
Well,
and so it's like,
there was one team that didn't want him, and that was the Astros. They took a picture.
Yeah, that's true.
Freaking jagoffs.
But like, for me, like I hear a lot on Twitter and I see it that where we can't expect Kris Bryant to be an MVP anymore. We can't expect that. And I'm one, I think he can. I think if he is healthy, he's going to wreck some kids this year. I think he's going to come back on a tear this year with the Cubs. And just that saying, look, we can't expect that. Could you even say that about Mike Trout? We're not going to expect Mike Trout to win an MVP. No, you expect that every year. And I think the same thing can be said about Kris Bryant. He has that talent and that ability. And I think this year we're going to see it.
I wonder how much difference there is in playing in Chicago for the Cubs when you were a part of a team that ended the longest drought in history, and then like your Mike Trout, you went to the Angels when they were terrible.
And nobody ever talks about you or
they've been terrible the whole time you've been there.
There's probably a lot less pressure. He can just go out there and perform because nobody's asking him tough questions. I mean,
right.
So
I mean, he has a bad game. Is there anybody in the outfield throwing crap at him or heckling him?
No,
probably not.
The one thing I do want to see is just his power numbers. His power numbers has taken a huge dip, and you just haven't seen the ball jump off the bat like they did before. And I think that has a lot to do with injuries. And so hopefully this year, and I hate riding on a hope, but I think this year we're going to see that. We're going to see the power numbers bounce back up with a lot less injuries. And he's in a contract year, which we'll get into a little bit later. And he's going to come ready to earn that big contract.
Yeah, I don't know. For a long time, he's been the most exciting player, or one of the most exciting players to watch on the field. And it's kind of been, you could just see all the chatter affect him, even in his kind of day-to-day a little bit less of a smile when he's out there playing. I mean, I still think, when I think Kris Bryant, I still think of that final out in the World Series, him taking that ground ball, already giant smile, ready to toss it over to Rizzo and just sprinting across the field. Yeah. I think with this being a walk year, he is going to just go on a tear. I agree. I think he's got nothing left to lose. And if anything, he's going to just go nuts and then walk away from all the Chicago drama, unfortunately.
Yep. Well, who do we got at shortstop? Our boy El Mago there, Jeffrey.
The only shortstop that matters.
That's right.
I mean, I realize there's a shortstop on the West Coast that's just signed a huge contract, but whatever. I still think we got the best shortstop in the game.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's electric on the field. I mean, he tags out base stealers with panache. Who else does that? No-look tags, behind-the-back tags.
Between the legs.
Between the leg tag. We got all sorts of tags. I know there's a lot of people that think that we need to wrap him up for like 6-7 years with an extension, but does that make a lot of sense when we got a talent pool in the minors for shortstops?
They are still like 3 or 4 years away.
So, I mean, do you think you want to wrap Javi up for 6 years?
We'll get into what I think the contracts are in a little bit.
All right.
Gotcha.
So, for me personally, I know Javi had a down year last year. I mean, he wasn't consistent at the plate at all. Some of that, I think, is he likes to look at it as bats in game. Like he goes and strikes out, he wants to go look at the tape. Well, the Major League Baseball wouldn't allow any video review during a game. Now, was that to cut down on the cheating, Mitch? Yeah. Thanks a lot, you dickheads.
Where's my trash can?
I mean, it's just ruining the game for everybody.
Yeah.
So hopefully they'll allow them to look at the videos.
They are this year. They're allowing in-game video where they can have their iPads and look at in-game video of past plays.
I
they just don't get live video.
I look for Javi to have a pretty big season this year.
I think he's going to be back with that video. I think he's back.
I do too. It's just, to me, he's like the one player that you could put anywhere on the field and he's going to have a highlight somewhere, even at catcher.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know about pitcher, but the other 8 defensive positions, I mean,
I could go for us getting up by like 14 runs and him batting left-handed again.
Yeah, that was awesome.
He is 1 for 2 right now at left-handed at bats.
That's crazy.
We did pick up a new left fielder, Jock Peterson. I will say this: the boy in the postseason, in 170 plate appearances, has an OPS of 852. In the postseason, he's legit. So, and he's had a ton of postseason experience with the Dodgers, but he is pretty similar to Schwarber. The one thing that I think that will make a huge difference in all this is what this lineup has struggled with since, I would say, 2017. It kind of got exposed in 2017 by the Dodgers. Teams that throw high velocity and throw gas, our Cubs cannot catch up to the gas and hit fastballs. It got exposed in 2017 with the Dodgers. It got exposed again last year with the Marlins throwing gas. And right now, the trend in Major League Baseball is gas. Throw heat. You want to know why the Tampa Bay Rays got in the World Series? Because they had 5 guys that could top 98, 99, every single one of them.
Yikes.
And so it's like, we couldn't hit fastballs. We couldn't hit velocity. I think our batting average against pitchers that threw over 95 last year was 202. That was our batting average last year against pitchers that threw over 95 miles an hour.
Man, Pedro Serrano would seriously rake.
Right.
Right.
He hits the straight ball very much.
But that's why I think they brought in Jock Peterson. Because what does Jock Peterson do? He hits fastballs. He hits velocity. And that's why he did well last year against the Rays. Hit some bombs. He did well against the Padres because the Padres have guys that can throw gas. And that's the one big thing is he has high slugging percentage against guys that throw fastballs and fastballs up in the zone. And that's the trend right now within baseball.
I really hope he gets some high cheddar.
So
just serve it to him.
Yeah, I'm interested to see. I mean, he's the guy on the team that we haven't seen play, in a Cubs uniform. So I'm really interested to see what he brings.
I think it's good they mixed it up a little bit and changed the roster a little bit. I feel like there was some staleness, even though we're kind of like right on the verge of competing for that another World Series title. I think we're going to be in good shape.
Who do we got in center?
And we got Hap, and he is such an interesting story. Comes up to the big leagues, does well, starts to struggle. You always have a new guy coming in, and pitchers don't know him at all. So they rake, they do well for a little while, and then the pitchers figure him out and they dip, and then the idea is then they'll cut him back up. Well, he got sent back down to Iowa for a long time. A lot of people were saying too long. A lot of people were calling for him to be back a couple months, maybe even half a year before he did come back. But I'd say as of right now, you can't look at the data he's throwing out and really complain about how that system went. He's taken over the everyday center fielder role. I mean, he's won that position with his play. Last year, he batted .245. He was on base .361. Kind of an interesting little thing here is his walk rate increased from 9.6 to 13% last year in just 60 games, which take that for what it is. But if that continues to trend up a little bit, it kind of changes up his hitting style. His strikeout rate ticked up just a smidge. If you look at projections for this season, though, he gets projected quite a bit lower than kind of what I'm thinking. They're showing his walk rate going back down and his strikeout rate going back up. But he looked like a more disciplined hitter in the end of 2019 and last season. Something that I think of when I think of Hap, though, is will he be in the leadoff spot, or will Peterson be there, maybe even Rizzo? Or will he slide back and will they create that 1-2 punch of Horner Hap again? that had a lot of success.
I know Ross has said already the spring training that Hap is his guy in a leadoff spot. So I think he's earned it. I think he did well in the leadoff spot last year. And all of his numbers were great last year. They started to dip towards the end, and it was right after he got hit in the eye. And so that's when you kind of saw a little bit. And I don't, it might have been that. I don't know. Pitchers might have been pitching him different. But he's one that can hit the fastball well too, and so I think Hap's going to be solid. MLB rated him, I think, 32 best baseball player in all of baseball. I think it was in the 30s. So I mean, I'm looking for Hap to have another big year.
That's 32. Like he's ranked 32nd. Like he's not the 32nd center fielder, right?
No, in all of baseball, all players. He was like in the 30s.
Clarifying for the fans out there listening.
Yep. No, that makes sense. Yeah, and then next to him, we got Hayward. Man, that is a guy who looks completely different in the last 2 seasons compared to the first, 4 or 5 years of his contract?
Well, I believe he signed in 2016 for 8 years, $188 million. So basically the first 4 years, we got him to shag balls in right field. Right.
Last year, he ended hitting 265, and he was on base 392. Big story I noticed is his walk rate jumped from 11.5 to 16.6%, and his slugging rate increased steadily in each of the last 4 seasons. It actually got to the point for a while there where when I saw him step into the batting box, I was really kind of worried that he was going to ground out every at bat. It seemed to be his thing: ground out, weak fly ball.
Double play.
Yeah, yep, exactly.
Second base, he would roll over every single time.
Yep. But he started hitting bombs, hitting dingers last season, and I really hope he continues that trend. If he does that, the combination of Peterson, Hap, and Hayward in the outfield could be pretty potent.
His dinger last year off Hader was a bomb.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Daddy hacks. He took a daddy hack.
I really wish he would have hit that mascot that was out there in the outfield.
Yeah, I mean, I think his career numbers the last 2 years has trended more towards his career. 16-17 struggle was kind of like the odd numbers out in his career stats. And so I'm with you. I think you're going to see more of a consistent. What you saw last year and the year before with Hayward is probably who you're going to get. Not an amazing all-star hitter anymore. Just a consistent, decent Gold Glove outfielder that's going to be decent. I know you don't care for him, Jeffrey, but I think he's still going to be a consistent presence.
I just wish he just would have hit a little better at times. I mean,
yeah.
What a sweet deal for him to sign for that many years at that kind of money. You know you're not going to have to worry about getting traded.
Yeah.
I mean, who's going to take him?
The Cubs bench rounds out with Marisnik, Bodie, Maben, and Vargas. I don't love this bench. I think it's serviceable. They will fill good roles. I don't think it's a huge drop-off from our starting.
Any projections on who they may bring up from AAA Iowa? Maybe like midway through the season to maybe bolster the bench a little bit?
When I looked at that, like, there's no guys that I think are like ready to just dominate. I mean, down there they have Ian Miller, which he's really fast. We talked about him a lot last year as possibly being fill-in outfielder role. You got Gamboni has done pretty good as a infielder. Higgins has done pretty good, but we're going to actually get into that a little bit more on our next episode. So we're going to have the broadcaster, Alex Cohen of the Iowa Cubs. That's going to come on our podcast, and he's going to talk a lot about guys in the minor leagues that we could see possibly with Iowa Cubs this year and with the Cubs in the future. So you can tune in a couple weeks.
Just a little teaser, folks.
Just a little teaser.
Yep.
But I mean, for this bench, I'm glad they signed Cameron Maben back.
Yep.
I think he did good. And I heard he's a great clubhouse guy.
Hey, where'd that guy that went 0 for 24 go?
Who did he sign with?
Is that Martinez?
Yeah, Jose Martinez. He's horrible. We don't want to talk about him. But the big thing is this year we have a lot of guys on this roster that are in their walk year. So we have Bryant, Rizzo, Baez, Kimbrel, Davies, Peterson, Arrieta, Chafin, Rami, and Winkler, all possibly in their walk year.
The Fonz?
They have a choice in their contract where they could choose to walk. So you can look at that like two ways. A lot of like Pacoda and different stats would say that in their walk year, you see an uptick in all their stats. A year that they could get a different contract or go into free agency, you're going to see a bump in all the stats. So this year, maybe we catch lightning in a bottle in all of them since they're in contract years.
Yeah, just knock it out of the park.
They do have that ability. The thing is, there is a former MVP on this team. There's a former runner-up MVP on this team. There's multiple all-stars on this team. There's a silver slugger on this team. They have the ability to wreck kids in this division and in this league. They can hit. And it's, are they going to put it together? Who says no that they couldn't do it this year? Like walk year, I mean, if they have any incentive to put it together and put up numbers, this is the year they could put up and make themselves a lot of money. Why not? So
that's what it's interesting how much we've complained about them not doing any extensions, but if the data suggests that bump and it's like, okay, I doubt anybody had this in their mindset. Like, well, we're going to make 2021 this kind of weird bump year and hopefully that'll push us in. But if anybody's going to roll the dice on it, it's going to be Jed and, Theo from before. So hopefully it works out for us.
I will say this, like, here's what I would offer. And mainly we're talking about Rizzo, Javi, and Bryant right now, because Contreras, we still got him for another year. Rizzo, I would offer 5 years at $110 million. Baez, I would offer him 6 years at $90 million. Bryant, I would offer him 5 years at $130 million. The reason why I would give 6 to Javi is, one, I could see him. One, he makes a huge difference in recruiting people from the Dominican Republic and from Puerto Rico. He has a base where he is connected down there, and a lot of people go to the Cubs facilities down there because of Javi. Right. So I think he makes a difference down there. So I would get him an extra year. But I think those contracts would be reasonable and doable by the Cubs, especially if they can get fans in the stadium this year.
Right. I think that's going to be the big thing is do they have fans in the stadium this year to prep the the money bank to do these deals, and I think those seem legitimate to me, especially if there's some option years or something, some of that play towards the end of those contracts. I'd be interested. I don't know. I love Bryant and I'd love to see him stay in a Cubs uniform, but with all the honestly crap he's gotten being a Cub for all these years, like I don't necessarily see him turning around and signing a team friendly deal. Which 130 million isn't team friendly necessarily, but how it's structured maybe, but love to see him stay.
Now,
I'm not going to see him trying to bleed us dry.
Mm-hmm.
Now with the other huge contract, the Fernando Tatis signing a 14-year, $340 million contract might look up my numbers of what I projected. That might change a little bit because, I mean, if I'm Javi, I'm going, hey, I was runner-up MVP just a couple of years ago. And if you look at my numbers, I ain't that far off. Like,
right?
Where's my $340 million?
See, here's the deal with Tatis. He's just one misstep around on a base and blowing a knee out and being a completely different player.
Yep.
I mean, seriously, look what happened to Dustin Pedroia.
Yeah.
He gets spiked by Manny Machado, never plays another game.
Yeah.
I spent the last two and a half years in complete misery and pain.
Yeah.
I will say that
It's a gamble.
I mean, his contract is going to run out 1 year earlier than Bobby Bonilla's contract, and Bobby Bonilla hasn't played in since I was.
Whoever was Bobby Bonilla's agent at the time is a genius.
Right? That is nuts.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, the contract that Tatis got, and it is deserved. He is legit good. I love Fernando Tatis. I love how he plays. He plays a lot like Javi.
Do you know the White Sox traded him to San Diego for a pitcher that went 16-35?
Yeah, James Shields. The White Sox were like, whew, we just saved ourselves a lot of money here.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. We did good here. Because I'm
they're
going to and I don't spend money.
They're going to spend that. Well, no, they're going to spend that money getting Tony La Russa to the ballpark. He lost his license, didn't
he? Yep.
Yikes.
Executive cars aren't cheap. Just saying.
Well, talk about spending money. The Ricketts, we know how they spent their stimulus check. They went out and brought back hats to the left a little bit. Pedro Strop is back. You got to love it. I mean, I don't know how much we're going to see value out of this signing, but good on them that they use their $600 stimulus check to go out and get Pedro Strop. I'm glad they did that.
I can't wait to see him blow a lead in the 8th, only to have Javi save him in the 9th.
Right? Man, it seems interesting because it's like they're pulling, other than Peterson, they're just kind of pulling all of these former players back together. Let's bring all the old Cubs into the fold.
5-year reunion. Let's bring them back together. The boys are back in town.
I tell you what, can we get Jason Hamels? I mean, his hand starts cramping up. We can just feed him some Lay's potato chips.
Yep.
I miss the starters that would give up 10 runs in 3 innings.
Oh,
Travis Wood, he can play left field or whatever.
Strop can play left. That inning,
Strop he did.
Left. So
they switched.
And Strop has a bat. I mean, he can swing the bat. He just can't run down to first because he'll get hurt, and then he'll screw us out of a playoff. But yeah, let's talk a little bit quickly before we wrap up the podcast about this Kevin Mather, Seattle's president, just stepping in at big time. So if you don't know the story, Kevin Mather, president of baseball operations for the Seattle Mariners, went on this Rosary Club Zoom call. I don't know why. Maybe Seattle baseball team does a little thing with Rosary clubs every year. I don't know. Gives them an update on how baseball is going with the Seattle Mariners. I don't know. But he let all the cats out of the bag.
Yep.
And basically, he told them who they're spending more money on than they should. That was Seager. He's getting paid way too much. But we saved a ton of money last year, and we're not gonna call up these guys until after their service time, and we are basically alluded to colluding with other owners to not sign free agents so that after the season start they can get a better deal on them. I don't know, but I know players around baseball are pretty happy that I don't know if he was drunk or what was going on.
Right? Yeah, the union loved this interview.
Yeah, the players' union loved it. Needless to say, he's no longer with the team today. But
probably no longer be in baseball.
I will encourage you to look up this if you want the whole story and to break down really, really well. Go to YouTube, search up John Boy, and he does a breakdown that is hilarious. And you're just like, I can't believe this guy is saying these things.
Right.
And I'm sure the owner and even the other people go to that rotisserie club now and shut this thing down.
Right.
Oh man, it was bad.
I can't believe the things he was saying. Check it out, folks. It's nuts.
Well, it makes a lot of sense about not signing players during free agency. I mean, look what's happened in the previous years. Even our own Jake Arrieta was one that we got signed after the season.
Yep.
Bryce Harper.
Craig Kimbrell.
Kimbrell.
Yes, Craig Kimbrell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, wait, you can't tell on us. Shut up.
So I have a trivia question. Do you guys know who the first black Cubs player was?
It was not Ernie Banks.
It was
a
not.
li- a little Black History Month trivia. Well, many people think it's Mr. Cub, Ernie Banks, but it was actually Gene Baker in 1953. And when Banks joined the team, it was Baker and Banks who were the first black double play combo in baseball, running up the middle. Baker was traded to the Pirates in 57, but injuries took their toll and he turned to coaching. And something kind of little known, later when Baker was a coach with the Pirates, manager Danny Murtaugh was thrown out of the game for arguing, and Baker took over, which made him the first black manager of a major league team for the final 2 innings of that game.
Cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's Black History Month. So we wanted to honor a little bit of Cubs history, and it's good. It's good to kind of talk about. And it is. A lot of people just, when they think the first black baseball player to break through with the Cubs, they think Ernie Banks. And that's not the case. It was this Gene Baker. And even Gene Baker with the Cubs, I believe it was 4 years after Jackie Robinson. So, like, the Cubs were that far. Like, I think baseball was just that far behind in having it happen. So it's great. He's kind of paved the way for other black players, and that's something that we need to see more. We just need to see more American players, and that being black players playing and getting baseball more into the inner city, more into communities where we don't see it. Even in like our town that we live in, it's not prevalent, and there's not a big group of kids playing. So we need to see that. And I know Jason Hayward leads a big group in Chicago and trying to build up inner cities and build up the baseball program in Chicago. Ed Howard, who we drafted last year, came up through those programs in Chicago, and he's going to be a player you're going to hear his name a lot in the next couple of years. And so, yeah, Black History Month, we wanted to honor Gene Baker and kind of paving the way for these players that we're going to get to see, or we get to see and will get to see in the future for the Chicago Cubs. So, yeah. But we're excited. Baseball is soon here. March 1st is the first spring training game. Excited for that. And, right now, the Cubs Unconventional is on right now. If you watch on Marquee Sports Network, they're doing some things, or if you watch them on Instagram or their Facebook or whatever, they're doing some things special for the fans that you can kind of get a little inside look into spring training and stuff going on. So check that out. But it's time to get a little bit more excited and kind of, I know there's a lot of snow on the ground here in Iowa, and it's been freezing cold last couple of weeks, but baseball's soon here. Warm weather is coming. There's a lot of times, like, my wife has caught me just going out to my front door and just looking out the window and like just staring outside. So, like, the weather hasn't changed. It's still cold. It's still snowing. I was like, yeah, but I'm picturing green. Yeah. And so baseball is soon to be here. So thanks for joining us this week. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, Dinger Cubs, Twitter, Dinger Cubs. Hit subscribe on and follow us all where you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and make sure you hit up Shy City Sports and their YouTube channel too, and subscribe on the Shy City Sports YouTube. But thanks for joining us this week on the Dingers Podcast.
Yeah, y'all come back now, you hear?
Have a good evening.